Welcome back to the Morning Skate Podcast. Today we are going to go over the first big slate, big prizes, Nikita Kucherov night on DraftKings. It's Matt, it's DJ. We're back. Welcome to a new season of the NHL. I cannot wait to get started. And we're back with the Morning Skate Podcast. Matt, are you freaking ready for? I would call. You know what? Honestly, I want to call this slate could you galaxy brain this slate enough, or are you like? I feel like that this slate has like so much chalk that's so obvious on DraftKings that it's like almost like how much can you galaxy brain? That's kind of like what I'm calling this 2-gamer. Like how much chalk can you stand, and how much galaxy braining can you do?
Well, I mean, the problem is you literally don't need to galaxy brain anything to fit in the chalk, which makes this pretty interesting because, a lot of builds are going to look very similar. By the way, this is the Morning Skate Podcast. To anyone new, welcome. It looks like I've been relieved of my hosting duties now that we are technically on StreamYard. I don't know how all the fun bells and whistles work, so I guess DJ's now the host. Kind of, and I'm the guest, so I guess I'll need to bring more fire takes than my steady, calm demeanor.
We'll bounce back and forth because when we do like dead on just podcast things like this, we probably should just do them the old way when it sounds a little bit better. But I kind of just set this up already, so whatever. We'll go back and forth. But first thing I wanted to get to before we get into the slate really quickly is I've been getting asked a little bit, other people, whatever, and like we have a lot of stuff in the Discord. So first off, preliminarily join the Morning Skate Podcast Discord. We've got a lot of people already jumping in. Everyone's welcome. It's free. There's no cost. And we talk about a lot of stuff in there. People share their stuff. We share our stuff and whatever. But other than that, Matt, I've been getting asked quite a bit about where I go to find different information and different stats and whatnot. I always mention HockeyViz. So I'll just kind of mention that one first because I'm more of a visual learner, which is why I kind of wanted to brand most of my stuff around that, where I'm like showing you instead of just telling you, trying to do that more with more videos, etc. But I really like hockeyviz.com. It can be a little bit confusing if you have no idea what you're looking at, but just going through the games, I actually did up to the premium subscription this year. You can see quite a bit of stuff very quickly. And I will probably do a video on them again, just because I think that it's like when you're checking stuff over, like I think the best way to put this is like, for props or for, shooting rates and stuff, like seeing where the player is shooting from is also important. I think at least, and I try to figure out like where, like when is this player shooting? Where are they shooting from? I like that kind of stuff as well. I kind of just factor that in to kind of check myself. I think it's a really good checking point going through HockeyViz. Any thoughts on HockeyViz before you mention the other site we were going to mention?
Love it. HockeyViz is good. If you like pictures and you don't like mean numbers, that's a good place to go. Yeah. Everything Micah does, you can find a write-up for. You can find an explanation for. It's pretty easy to navigate. So highly recommend anyone who's serious about hockey and hockey betting, hockey DFS to sign up for HockeyViz. Otherwise, I think pretty much everything you need as far as data analysis is concerned, you can source from Natural Stat Trick. naturalstattrick.com. Everything there you can export into an Excel table to further manipulate. The one downside to HockeyViz is that you can view things, but because it's all sort of in graph form and chart form, pictures, there's no real like sorting mechanism or anything that you can't download things into tables and whatnot. So Natural Stat Trick is a really good place to go for player stats, line stats, even team level stats if you're trying to build projections from the ground up. And then, another one to mention is Money Puck. They have some good data on there, some interesting sort of shot talent, for example, is a metric that's on there. You can download it, and I have some quibbles with how they do some certain things, but in general, it's not a huge deal. Some good data there. And then maybe Evolving Wild. I personally don't use them a ton, but they have some other stuff there. Just check those 3 sites out if you are looking for more data type stuff. Let's get into things. I mean, it's a 2-game slate, so we're not going to have too much to talk about, but if you are playing on DraftKings, there's a large GPP, $15, $50K to first. FanDuel's a bit smaller, $10K to first though there. $4 entry point is certainly not bad at all. So, we're going to be talking about DraftKings. This is a show between two people who honestly just play on DraftKings far more than FanDuel. And, it's similar, but it's also very different in terms of pricing and, slate context and stuff between the two sites. And so our personal preference is to just focus on DraftKings. If you are talking FanDuel, if you're playing FanDuel, I highly urge you to get in the Discord. We have several people who, listen to us like maniacs and then just go play FanDuel. It's definitely softer, I think. There's I think there's less like 150 maxers. It's generally easier to build super teams and whatnot. So maybe game theory is a bit more important over there. But for the most part, we're going to be talking about DraftKings or just generally sort of how we feel the slate's going to unfold.
Yeah.
So,
and very, very last note before we get started, really quickly, I'm probably going to do. I'm definitely planning on doing a short video tomorrow using Puck Luck as well, just going through their stuff and going and probably building a little lineup, stuff of that nature. And if you aren't on Underdog Fantasy, Underdog, it doesn't really work. Underdog Fantasy, though, definitely check them out. I've been drafting a lot of teams. Promo code MSP for up to $100 match deposit. I'll be maxing pretty much every one of their daily fantasy contests. They're drafts, though. So basically, you get in a lobby with 4 different people. For these ones, there are 4 people. You get to pick 1 center, 2 wingers, 1 defenseman, 1 goalie, and 1 flex. And right now, their projections have 3 goalies that are not starting as the starters, and people are legitimately taking them. So I've had multiple times where someone's taking Brian Elliott or Halak or Aiden Hill. So really, like, if you were like just chasing edge, definitely get over on Underdog Fantasy and draft some teams if it's legal in your state. Matt, I know you're ready to get to the slate now.
I've got my Evan Silva jug. We're ready for podcasting season.
I have this really dainty coffee cup full of water.
All right.
If you're watching.
So yeah, I mean, so I spent a little bit of time before we recorded sort of playing around with the Roto Grinders optimizer. I generally don't really I don't opto bro a lot of slates. I'll probably do so on this slate just because the main, price point $15. It's pretty easy to have control over an opto on a 2-game slate, to be honest. So I was playing around with it, just seeing sort of what the builds look like. And this slate is going to be very driven by the New York Rangers, which is a little strange. Tampa is without a doubt one of the best teams in the league. They have Vasilevsky. And so it's just one of those things where it's like, the Rangers are just priced to the point where Shesterkin's going to be very popular. The top line, Zibanejad, Kreider, they fit with a lot of things. The Tampa side of that game is a good bit more expensive than the Rangers side. And then Vegas and LA kind of sit in like this awkward, not really sure who to play besides the top line in LA. And so what it looks like is basically the chalk is going to be Rangers 1, LA 1. It fits perfectly. I mean, you literally don't have to sacrifice at either defense position either to play that line, kind of mush together. So basically what I found is avoiding that is almost certainly going to be the way to avoid duplicating your lineups in this big 50K to first GPP, which kind of makes this a different sort of analysis than most slates we do, because, most slates we're saying, here's the stacks that'll be under-owned, over-owned, that we like, dislike, here's some recent news, whatnot. We don't really have that element here. We know exactly what the lines are going to look like. We know exactly what the power play units are going to look like. And we have a pretty good sense of what the field is going to do. So rather than, go game by game or team by team, DJ, is there a certain spot on this slate that you are kind of looking forward to as far as like gaining leverage over your opponents in GPPs?
Yeah, I mean, I really think personally it's just game stacking Vegas LA and like not ignoring, because I think you kind of have to put a piece in from Tampa and the Rangers, and one of them would be a goalie in that scenario. But my plan, and I don't even really care, it's 2 games. I'm not sure exactly what it's going to look out to. I have multiple tickets. If you're watching, I think I have 4, which isn't as many as I would have liked, but whatever. But I think that's how I'm mainly attacking this game. I think that the Vegas Golden Knights are not quite as bad as people think. I think LA is going to continue to push the pace. I think that both goaltenders are pretty bad to just about average to maybe just below average. Whereas Shesterkin and Vasilevsky are much, much better. I think it's just that's how I'm going to build and maybe take a piece of this Rangers or a piece of this Tampa that has some upside that maybe can get there, like maybe going with a guy like Kravtsov and Trouba rather than taking the top guns that are so easy to afford, really getting different that way, hoping that game busts, goes 2-1 and we get like a fourth liner goal or whatever. I think that's very in the cards. Like it's hard to know. And the thing I don't want to do is talk myself into convincing myself of a narrative that doesn't exist. Like, I don't want to say like, oh, just because these teams played in the playoffs, like they're going to play tough. Like, I don't really care about any of that, but I think just thinking differently, using already Vegas implied odds, which are showing that the Vegas LA game should be higher scoring. Just use that little note to your advantage. And it's really easy to fit in kind of all the pieces from this game without too much of a struggle. Note that the lines for Vegas are, I guess, maybe minorly more difficult to put together and feel really, really good about. Like Eichel Smith, as you kind of, if you watch looking at the screen, you can see I have everything up right now. But Eichel was with Smith and Kessel. Eichel with Smith on the first power play. Stone, Stephenson, Theodore. Not the best for you. Theodore makes a lot of sense with Eichel, that means. And then Marchessault, Carlson, both together on the, what I would say is the second line. I don't know. They don't have it listed as a second line, but whatever. Marchessault, Carlson with Pietrangelo. The other option, I guess, in theory for a stack could be Stephenson and Stone, which were on the first power play with Eichel and Theodore and Smith. So there's many stacks within there that I think you could play with. I don't personally plan on playing Stephenson Stone. I just don't think that there's a mile high of upside there. I'd rather go Eichel Smith in one lineup and then maybe do Carlson, Marchessault, Pietrangelo. Kind of work with those power play stacks, see if one of them could go nuclear. And then on the LA side, pretty easy. Fiala, Kempe, they could correlate with even Arvidsson. I think I might be running out of players almost. Doughty on the first power play unit, but I might just punt that defense with one of the players in the Rangers game. Pray that maybe they get a goal, be a freaking godsend. That's what might separate you in this pack. Like, I'm not saying you have to get crazy and play a guy that's going to get 12 minutes, but like you could reasonably play a defenseman in this Rangers Tampa game that's going to see big minutes, like a Keandre Miller. Like, this is a guy that has really good rates, should see a lot of run. Like, what if he gets that goal that separates you at very, very low ownership because you just don't need to punt? Any thoughts on all that?
Yeah, so we'll talk about a few like differentiator, like really low owned pieces that we can, get behind. I think the one thing that I'm going to be trying to do intentionally is getting over on Tampa, particularly Vasilevsky. I get that the Rangers are like the absolute worst team to play goalies against for the most part because, at least last year, all we have is last year's data to work on. They had a really good power play. They put up very little as far as weak shot volume. Basically, all their chances, even at 5-on-5, were high danger chances. And so it's not the best situation for a goalie to sort of be set up in. What that means, though, is that Vasilevsky is on the road. He's the most expensive goalie on the night, and he's almost certainly going to be the lowest owned goalie on the night. And so just playing him almost right away sort of allows you to almost play whoever you want. And on a similar note, Stamkos, Point, they're both centers playing on the top line, top power play alongside Kucherov. So I think one interesting way to sort of navigate that is to maybe say play a Stamkos Hedman stack or something along those lines where you're not necessarily forcing in Kucherov, which again, I don't suggest on a larger slate, but just there's a very real situation where Kucherov just simply is priced out of the optimal because he gets 2 assists and, a guy like Hedman, a guy like Stamkos each score a goal. So I think I think the way that I'm approaching this slate is really trying to figure out what I want out of this Tampa Rangers game. Because what this means is that anything that you sort of get right on the initial part of the slate, you can react to in late swap for the later game. You'll have basically, a decent amount of time, at least in the third period, knowing, this is my best lineup. This is where, I've gotten the early points and whatnot. And you might be able to sort of like optimize after the fact too, which is nice. So there's a lot of paths to navigate here. But I think for me, it's sort of just being over on Tampa, generally speaking. So that's where my lean is. A couple things that I pulled out from the preseason. Um, just who really cares about preseason? I'm not sure I care this much. But I ran through some power plays and basically seeing like who was taking the shots on the power play for these teams, because like 5-on-5 play, everyone's kind of like, yeah, sure, there's guys trying to make the team that are trying, but guess what? Nikita Kucherov, he did not give a shit during the preseason. But on the power play, this is where you're trying to, basically pass the puck around. It's not like you're skating hard or anything. And you're sort of figuring out your system, working in new guys and whatnot. Kind of interesting that Victor Hedman took 40% of Tampa's shots on their power play. It's only 3 games, so do with that what you will. But we know Victor Hedman is the guy who is always hyper involved offensively. Same deal with the other, like the forward positions. Hedman is the most expensive defenseman. He is far more expensive than Pietrangelo, than Shea Theodore, 2 guys who are going to project very well because of their strong floor rates. But Hedman has, a ton of ceiling as well. So just to try, I think getting over on Hedman is also something that I'm going to be trying to do, which makes sense if I'm trying to get over on Tampa in general. But it is shaping up to be a very interesting slate from that perspective. So any other like I guess thoughts at a larger level before we pick out some of the lower owned like GPP like dart type throws to fill out lineups with?
No, I mean, I think that, I definitely would have some correlation. Definitely make sure that the lines. They're all on Morning Skate Podcast Twitter, Power Play and lines, because there's not going to be, there's not going to be 50 goals on this slate. There's going to be, maybe 10. That's, good middle round number, 10 goals. So getting, enough exposure to multiple point nights is what you want there. Hoping that it kind of comes together. You could, in theory, try to play 9 guys that all get a goal or whatever, but not very likely. So definitely make sure you're getting exposure to a stack in some capacity. And you can play it, like I pulled it up right now. Stamkos, Point, Kucherov, Hedman, Vasilevsky. You can still build a lineup around that. It's not going to be quite as pretty as if you do something else, but Matt, sorry.
And one thing to do here, just looking at this 4-man build, a lot of people set up their runs. A lot of people just naturally default to playing 4-3-1 type stacks. Playing that 5th man, playing a 6th man is very, I think, appealing. So in this sort of lineup where you're looking at the big 3 on Tampa, Victor Hedman, Vasilevsky, Alex Killorn, he's a guy who, if the power play scores 3 goals, he's probably getting an assist, at least, if not one of the goals. And so doing that already sort of like differentiates you a little bit. The field started doing it a bit more last season, but still, I think that's the most surefire way to sort of to have a realistic shot in a GPP without sort of running into these massive dupe trains that we should see on a 2-game slate that's very loosely priced like this. Is just playing those 5-man stacks, playing those 6-man stacks, and sort of mixing up your power play, even strength correlations. Because, we play correlations because in hockey, every goal can have up to 2 assists, but doesn't mean, that if a guy scores 2 goals, he can't have 4 different assists on those 2 goals. So sort of stacking like across power plays and across 5-on-5 lines is interesting. Be smart about it, but that's, I think, one of the ways to like get different right off the bat. So and we've covered the angles, we've covered the overstacking. Now let's talk about our favorite part. Some of these low-owned guys that we have a realistic chance to sort of win us a slate by having multiple goals or the double bonus or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think center, it's always kind of the toughest to get involved with. Like I mentioned, William Karlsson's with Marchessault 5-on-5 in power play, and he's a guy that definitely could get there. He's not my favorite play by any means, but he really does feel like I don't know how much cheaper at center I'm going to go personally. There's just not a lot of. I mean, it's maybe you could talk me into Heedle, I guess, or Cheadle or whatever we're going by now, but it's pretty thin down the line at center. I don't think there's really any. I don't think I'm going to be punting at center. It's the best way to put it. But is there anyone you're thinking about at center that you like?
Yeah, no, honestly, the fact that Byfield's not playing on the power play kind of sets him out of play for me. I'll probably mix him in just because I'm gonna want to have. I think I'm going to want to be over the field on Kaliev, or actually Kaliev's on the nominal fourth line now. So,
yeah,
Kaliev.
Yeah, I mean Kaliev is kind of the perfect case of like this
Blake
guy
Facade.
could have 5 shots on goal and a goal on 9 minutes, and like it wouldn't be shocking, but he could also have 9 minutes and just get completely factored out. I mean Byfield, Velarde, and Iafallo. I don't think that's a piss poor line. Like I see upside there. I think Velarde is a really skilled player. Iafallo can bang around and maybe set him up, but he's not even on the second power play. Byfield, like he's on neither.
Yeah.
As far as practice is concerned, like Velarde is at least net front, and I think like him and Jersey, you could put a gun to head. I think that's not that bad. Like I think you could convince me of that. I thought Velarde would be center. He's not. Sadly enough, he's minimum salary winger. I'd rather have him be center, but it is what it is. Like I think Gabe Velarde, like I don't know. I don't want to say that I think there's this crazy rate shooter here. I just think there's an incredibly skilled player in this.
I think center's the least interesting position because I think Eichels and Zibanejad are such strong plays that like, and then you mix in Stamkos and Point, who are like the two guys there. It's like you only need to play 2 centers really. Kopitar is probably going to be the highest zone center just because of his line mates. And it's like at some point, like I don't think you're losing. I don't think you can afford to lose center by playing one of these like, minimum price guys that just frankly don't have a lot to them.
I mean, honestly, the more I think about it, like you could actually do something. I mean, who's net front Rangers power play? That's kind of what I was gonna. Oh, it's Kreider, right? It's not going to be. I don't know why I thought Trocheck might be, but
well, I mean, Trocheck's going to be the Ryan Strome, where he's sometimes in front, but like he's going to be the guy in the bumper.
I was just thinking like a mini of like Fox and Trocheck isn't insane if you're running like I was thinking if you're running like a late game hammer type of thing and just run that mini with like Shesterkin, because I think if you're like people that play Shesterkin are, I don't know, I don't want to say they're definitely, but they're probably going to be playing Rangers. It's not always, but I think more than like so if you just say like, all right, I'm just playing 1 or 2 Rangers with Shesterkin rather than playing 3 or 4 because it's so cheap that you can afford a lot of something else.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just a thought process, or even if you play. Oh, I'm sorry.
Panarin's price point makes that a little bit discouraging to me, just because like it feels like Panarin at the same price as Fox is just like a better play. And like, sure, there are avenues where Trocheck gets the tip and Fox and Zibanejad get power play assists or whatnot.
No, I wasn't even including Zibanejad in this. So, like I was just saying.
I'm saying like, how does Panarin not get there if Trocheck gets there? Because this is the Ryan Strome thing. Like this is, to me, this is what Trocheck is there to do. He's there to be Ryan Strome. He's not going to be the, the guy who flirts with double bonus that we want him to be. He could, and we will adjust quickly if that is the case, but I think Trocheck gets there on efficiency by scoring, by getting, assists. And it just feels like Panarin is so, just omnipresent on the ice that like his price on this slate means that if Trocheck is getting into the optimal, like I think Panarin's going to be outscoring, at least one of like a Fiala, a Kreider, a Kempe, like those sort of chalky pieces that I'm not really willing to leave off Panarin, I think, from like that second line type stack you're talking about. But let's dive down a bit.
You want to just move over to wing? Yes, move over to wing in general. Okay, I was just kind of thinking. So I mean, Kucherov not overpriced. Like I think he is actually probably discounted here, but 2-game slate, maybe I don't know why they priced it this way, but I think 7,400 is a discount on Kucherov. I think you could factor him in without trying too hard, as we're going to get to. Kreider, Marchessault, Fiala, the guys above 6K. I mean, all of these are good plays in their own right. I think that most of them make sense in a stacking scenario for sure. And all of them, I feel a little bit differently about who I said. Kreider is Zibanejad. Marchessault, I'm probably going to play with Pietrangelo for sure, and maybe even Theodore as well. I think that the double D there could be a bit enticing to me as well. Are there any thoughts on this upper tier wing that like you're kind of coveting. I feel like it's
No,
Kucherov, but
I mean, yeah, we know the correlations. I don't
okay, no
know
need to
that
get
we
into
need
it.
to. Yeah, I
We'll
mean,
go right to sub 4K then, right?
Fiala and
Or
Kempe are good together. Like, that's the thing where it's like, yeah, sure, like to do the smart stuff. Don't just pick one guy from every line and say, oh, this is my 9 like goal parlay, because you're probably better off making that on the sports book or whatever. Like, just be smart about your correlations and whatnot. I think Phil Kessel's in an interesting position because, he's way too expensive for what Phil Kessel was for the last year in Arizona. But here he comes. He comes into Vegas. He's alongside Eichel at 5-on-5. He's on the second power play unit, so there's no like clear and obvious path to rostering him alongside Eichel like there is Riley Smith. So I think because of the price and just because Smith is such a more attractive option, that Kessel actually gets lost a bit here. I'm going to want to play both guys next to Eichel, of course, but like, I think there's a case to Phil Kessel as a one-off type play because I think that'll be pretty rare. He's obviously in a great spot. And we know that Phil Kessel, if he can find what he had like a few years ago before he went to the atrocity that is the Arizona Coyotes, if he can find that offensive touch, like he could easily be a 20-25 goal guy for this team. And so, getting that on opening night at whatever 8-9% on a 2-game slate seems kind of attractive to me. So I'm willing to take a chance there. Any other like super low guys that you have your eye on?
I mean, uh, Kravtsov and Kako are definitely
Yeah.
there for the Rangers stacks. They're both seemingly pretty solid. Kako on the top line, but second power play. Kravtsov on the second line, but top power play. Just names to mention and bring into the mix. I already kind of got to my min salary guy and Gabe Velarde, who I just think is really good. I think that he'll see some run with good players like Byfield and I follow. Like I think that line's actually useful. So I wouldn't mind mixing him in just because I don't think anyone is going to dumpster dive into a minimum salary player. He's going to be very low owned. And if he scores a goal or something, it's going to be a lot more meaningful in a sense. I know you can make the case with anyone. That's like you can make that case with so many guys, but I just genuinely I don't think anyone's going to play a minimum salary guy when they're just going to convince themselves like, well, I'll get Kako in there for 500 more. Like that correlates better, right? Like I just feel like these like no one's gonna do it. Maybe they shouldn't, but I'm willing to bet on the skill of Velarde, Byfield, and Iafallo to find their way, especially if I'm doing like a giant Tampa stack. Maybe I include a guy like Gabe Velarde. I don't know if I'd play it with Byfield, but maybe I might just go with a guy like Jersey. Maybe they hook up on the power play. I think Jersey is a really good case of a guy that's probably going to see more minutes than you'd expect, but lost his first power play role with the return of Doughty, so no one's going to play him either. He's another guy that just no one's going to have, right? I mean,
basically the entire LA blue line besides Drew Doughty has like ridiculous shot rate numbers, and it's kind of concerning because like most of these guys did it in the AHL that I'm seeing like they're really high like percentiles in shot rates. But like we saw Jersey do it at the NHL level last year. So like just let's see. Matt Roy, same deal. I suppose, I guess it could be Brant Clark instead of Sean Walker. We're not sure which guy. But Sean Walker, same deal. Like they could easily get you a double bonus. And I feel like that's just not what people are going to be gunning for, quite frankly, which makes sense. It's not like they're the super attractive pieces, but they could definitely sort of, outscore this kind of nonsensical, non-existent range in terms of defensemen. But sorry, getting back to the low end wings, we mentioned Kaliev. Make sure the chatter on him doesn't get out of control. I'm still going to try and be over the field on him, but 3.1, people understand that this dude was put on earth to score goals in NHL hockey games. So that's my main concern with him, is just that he gets up to 20-25% owned as like this one-off piece, which kind of sounds gross. So maybe playing him with the Jersey is a way to sort of navigate that situation. Let's see. I had one more in. No, well, Yeah, Kravtsov, I think, is a really good piece as well. He was really good in the preseason. I thought the beats weren't necessarily in agreement with that, which I found interesting. But anytime I saw him, it looked like he was, a puck dominant, willing to pull the trigger. And so I'll take a chance on him playing alongside Artemi Panarin, and just hope that if he's coming in where, I mean, right now he's not projecting very well. But let's see, what's his actual? Is he even? Yeah, he's projecting for 6% ownership, which is kind of silly. We'll see if that changes, but I like him.
I like the angle because I like just overstacking when I put it together. So if I make, I might end up with like 10 lineups, honestly, because I'm a degenerate. I'm going to be doing at least 4. I think I might have, like, I don't know if I'll do a 5 every single time, but I don't hate the idea of doing a 5 of any team. And in daily fantasy, like, I know someone in the chat or in the comments was mentioning like bets. Like, I'm not focused on any, like, I'm willing to talk, you could talk me into anything in daily fantasy, right? You could tell me the Rangers are going to win by 5, and I could say, well, what does that look like, right? Like, it could happen. That's definitely in the range of outcomes that the Rangers come in and win by 5. It's in the range of outcomes that Tampa comes in and wins by 5. Like, any of these things can happen. So what does that look like if it does happen? It's probably, 12% of the time, one of these two teams wins by more than 3 goals, maybe 18 to 18%, somewhere in that range. Well, that exists then. And I want to try to put a lineup together that shows that, because a lot of people won't. A lot of people will say, what's the mean? What's the median here? What's the likely outcome? It's like, well, if you just build all likely outcome lineups, yeah, maybe you'll get there. But the way to win it now is razor thin. Like, I'm not going to go with that. I'm going to go with, I think there's more volatility in the Vegas LA game, where I think that there's like, well, I just think the goalies are bad. Like, I think there's going to be higher shot volume, worse goalies. I'm going to probably pivot there. I mean, as far as bets are concerned, I'm going to post my bets tomorrow. I really don't think I'm have any interest in either money line personally anyways. I know Matt doesn't really care to hear this right now, but I'm probably just going to focus on props as far as hopefully DraftKings fix the prop stuff. Just because I don't know if I want to play
They will.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if I want to play the volatility game with the opening night NHL. It just feels like there's not going to be an edge there at all. Like, we already.
Yeah, my guess is it's been posted for 2 weeks now. I don't think they're hanging a stale line at this point in time.
No, nothing's gonna move. So it's like, if I really last minute, I'm gonna look through some stuff. If I really feel like I gotta pull up, I feel like there isn't. I think there's more around the player props, or I think there's gonna be more ambiguous kind of stuff that they don't really factor in. And we'll see. But you know what? I think that anything that you can talk me into anything with a stack, and I'm going to make it work from there. And we already kind of gave you some of that, but like, if I'm probably going to, in a lineup, have a 4-man LA stack. I'm going to have or maybe a 5-man Vegas, a 5-man, like, probably run them all in some capacity. And I think there's so many unique plays off of that, because once you start with a 5-man Tampa stack, you have to get different. There's no choice now. Like, you're going to get different because you cannot afford to be similar to someone else now. You can't afford. And like, I was kind of teetering with, like, could I get Eichel in that mix? If I take out Braden Point, I might be able to. Now I'm kind of getting the 5. But there's a lot of ways to play around with it. I guess that's the long way of saying that you can kind of do whatever you want here, but I think the best angle is going to be overstacking at least one team. Is there any thoughts back to that?
If you think that if you think that Brett Howden scores 2 goals, like, you can absolutely play Brett Howden on this slate. Like, there is, this isn't a 10 gamer where you're just like, you're kind of throwing money into a well. Like, there is an opportunity to build a good lineup with him in it. That maybe looks like stacking Brett Howden with Michael's. Jesus, I have Michael Stone on the brain. With Mark Stone. Who's a very good hockey player, and, kind of is on a line with, 3 guys who don't shoot the puck between Howden, Stevenson, Stone. Like, there's a very good chance that, Mark Stone has a 5-shot game because he's not passing it off to Eichel or Marchessault or whoever. So, like, doing something like that, like, you can absolutely sort of ride these, these random players that, like, you think are, like, in a good spot for whatever reason. Doesn't matter. To cap off a few defensemen to at least consider, if you need, especially on the cheaper end, I worry a bit about Theodore Pietrangelo getting super chalked up. So I'm really only playing them in stacks, honestly. I worry, especially Theodore. I worry a bit about the floor relative to like a 35% type ownership. Um, but some lower owned guys to consider: Mikhail Sergachev. He even has the day-to-day tag. If that sticks until lock, that honestly might influence a lot of the
Yeah, he's gonna play.
a lot of the normies. Yeah, and he's definitely gonna play. He's a guy who's just very good offensively. He definitely has like that multi-point upside, along with blocks equity, and maybe the shots, but mostly the blocks and multi-point. And then Mikey Anderson playing top pair, 2.5 dead minimum. Like sure, he's a guy who I think makes sense in any lineup. If you are looking for a punt, he's definitely your best option in my opinion. So
yeah, I just
anything else?
Wait, am I muted? No, okay. No, I think that probably covers the most of it. I mean, there's a couple very, very few ambiguous spots, like a guy like Bray Clark, who people are really, really high on, and I think projects to be a DFS monster in the future, but I just don't see him getting in the game, let alone getting minutes. Mikey Anderson, that's a really good call. I really like that a lot. The Knights did get Nick Hague signed. I can't imagine there's a scenario where he plays.
No, I don't think so.
It would just be insane if he got in there. Other than that, I think the Sergachev call is honestly probably I didn't even think about him, and I think he really could be like, especially if you are running a like where I'm going to get different is getting like Tampa 1 for whatever reason. Hagel, Perry, Maroon, Colton. I mean, I think Colton could make sense there. Like, you could talk me into anything because if freaking Colton scores a goal or something stupid, so yeah.
So so you kind of led me right into I'm just going to do one like hot take, I guess, or whatever, like a situation that I will be way over exposed to. And for me, to close things out here, unless you had anything else, that'll be Ross Colton. Not because like he's in a great spot or anything. He's literally playing with someone named Kepke and Vladislav Domestikov. I'm literally trying to remember who that Kepke guy is.
Nemestikov, though, is the perfect guy for him. I don't remember much about Kepi, but like Nemestikov is going to be passing to Colton.
Yeah, and playing on that second power play unit with Sergachev and Colton. Like Colton's a guy who will shoot. He's his iCorsi per 60 in the past, dating back to 2019. So basically, since he joined the NHL, he's in the 90th percentile in the league. His minors, he was a shot monster down there too. So Ross Colton is a guy who's going to be, 5% owned. I think Kaliev gets steamed up a bit, but I think Colton's the same deal, like basically the same deal, where he's playing in a pretty nondescript role. But he has, a ton of upside, and he can get there by himself, basically. Like his line mates don't need to go with him because he should be the power play trigger man. And he should have a guy in like Mikhail Sergachev who also creates value for your lineup, dishing to him on that second power play unit if the first power play unit fails. So that's like my flag plant type hot take thing here. But what do you got for me?
Cole Kiepke, 20 goals in 69 games last year in the AHL, 199 shots on net. I don't have his exact shot.
Okay, yeah, 2.88 shots per game. That's 96th percentile in the AHL last year. So that's also pretty good.
That's pretty good. I know what I was thinking. I'm like,
there. Yep.
Honestly, right. I think like you could convince me to do that for sure. Like minimum salary, like what that would give you is just a bananas weird lineup that no one's gonna have. And like, what if freaking Colton and Kepke score goals in this stupid game? Because like, if it happens and you're not gonna be the only one that has it, but you're gonna be one of very if that happens and you have that lineup, you could chalk donkey the absolute hell out of it now and just ride it through. So he might be a guy even to look at for just anytime goal. I'm gonna even look if he's listed, but like if he's like listed after all the defensemen, sure, I'm gonna do it live on air because like sometimes you'll find that. That's the one thing to look out for is when these guys come in, like they don't even know who they are and they put him at like plus 1,200 to score. Or whatever it is. Yeah, 12-1. Right. Anything else before we close? We're probably well over what we should have done for a 2-game slate. I'll do a bets thing tomorrow. Like I said, bets thing coming tomorrow. I'm not going to do bets right now. It's freaking 2 games, and I don't think either of them have any line listed right now that I'm actually intrigued by. But I will look tomorrow, and I will get back to you.
Yeah, no, we will be back for the Wednesday sort of like main. Let's call it the main slate because it's the official opening night of the NHL with more than just 2 games and a bit more normal of a game by game type approach to the slate. And yeah, you can find that right on the Morning Skate podcast feed. Find that on Stitcher, on iTunes, or on DJ's YouTube channel. Which will be linked in the description, or if you go to one of our Twitters, it'll be there. But yeah, just sort of branching out the way we do our content, making it a bit more visually appealing. If anyone likes to follow along with the player pricing and whatnot as they watch, just sort of making sure that we are connecting in as many ways as possible. So yeah, that'll do it for me. Make sure you get in that Discord. Any changes we will cover in there, but fingers crossed this should be a quiet opening night without too many at everyone's in the chat. That those are always fun when you sort of are sitting there saying, "Oh, you're going to notify 200 people."
Like, when you at everyone thinking, "Yeah, I did that once." Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here then. Definitely, I will do a very, like I said, I'll post a card tomorrow. B, I will, if there even is anything good, I'm really gonna try to hold myself to not posting bets just to post bets. That's another thing I'll just mention. Like, I think it's really stupid to be like, oh, like I have 4 bets in every game because it's the opening slate. Like, I think there was a small edge in some of the stuff that we looked at, and even I couldn't have been more right about LeBanc being super fucking good, and they wanted to put him in more, and they put him on the first power play, and he still doesn't score or get a point, but whatever. Basically, I'm a genius. Now, Matt, let me not mute myself. Any last words before we close the show?
Nope. Overstack and win the 50K if it's not me. So good luck.
It'll be me. But I'm going to mute myself and play the music that just...
You nailed it.
Well, we got to say the line. Say the line.
Oh, I'm doing it. All right, from Doug, from DJ, from myself. Have a good opening night, everyone, and we will see ya.